All right. I'm waiting, and there's this stream V starting a stream. I had trouble showing this stream. Could hear it though, right?
The state of our union is strong.
It's alive.
Unemployment is the lowest in history.
Everything they're telling you.
So you can't hear it, but this is the ad.
How you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Oh, how you doing there? How you doing there, Soulboy? How's it going?
What?
Oh, I'm doing great. How come we're not on your?
Supposed to attack the platform as a whole.
Here we go.
And we can see this from the history of the Wall Street Journal attacking YouTube in the past. Their first attack was against PewDiePie, who they...
This is a Romanian guy that's part of this alt-right deal. He's associated with Sargon, but not Medicare.
Watch a YouTube video and you see an ad, that specific company endorses that YouTube video. I don't think I actually heard people say this in the past regarding YouTube, but after the Wall Street Journal, a lot of other mainstream media outlets hyped this up and created it a thing into the public perception. And I think many companies were actually upset regarding this, because if before you were a company and you would just pay YouTube some money so that they can show your ads, now you have to worry about PR, because if your ad is placed on a controversial video, that might affect how people view your company, thanks to the Wall Street Journal. And the reason the Wall Street Journal makes these articles, I don't think is to remove extremism from the YouTube platform. The Wall Street Journal has no problem hiring journalists like Ben Fritz, which is the actual person who wrote the PewDiePie article, who has an avatar of South Park that also makes fun of the Jews, and who also makes jokes about Jewish people on Twitter. So it's blatantly obvious that the article is not about protecting the feelings of the Jewish community, or that they're concerned about racists on YouTube. No, their whole purpose is to make it more difficult for content creators to get money. So they attacked the ad revenue and created the apocalypse. However, a lot of content creators managed to get an alternative way of making income. The live streaming community is quite profitable for some YouTubers who get money from...
Okay, so I'm going backwards through my list here. This is a live stream from V, and this is related to the Sargon versus Andy Worski versus Medicare versus Sam Cedar, because none of them will debate Sam Cedar. And I have 4 other points. I'll do from 4, 3, 2, 1. All right.
Was it for JF, they would have probably gone after Andy Worski. And
JF.
If it wasn't Worski, they would have gone after Medicare.
He's a
And if it
French
wasn't Medicare,
fascist.
someone else. They would have found someone
Anti-Semitic
in order
fascist.
to make this article. This article is not about complaining about people, in my opinion. It's about complaining.
No, he's complaining about Ralph Retort's kill stream has been demonetized, deplatformed, and so on.
New way of people making money. And at the end of the day, super chats are a crowdfunding way. People give super chats to YouTube
because the Wall Street Journal was making an article, writing an article on how fascist channels are making money off of super chats, the chats where you can pay money at YouTube during the video, and all hell broke loose. It could be because they're saying it's because Wall Street Journal got them deplatformed. Like, hey, please deplatform these people. But it looks like something that's similar or equivalent to that. But Wall Street Journal's writing a story. They contact YouTube. They contact people involved, and people involved are like, shit, we don't want to deal with this shit. We're gonna deplatform these guys because the Wall Street Journal's about to write a story about how we're platforming them.
Almost free of censorship 6 years ago, should start having more and more draconian censorship methods in order to prevent people like Robert Bowers. It's a very big stretch and very disingenuous, especially from a website like the Wall Street Journal. Then they also call Ethan Ralph to be a far-right personality. Now, if Ethan Ralph were to want to preserve the purity of the white race and to create a ethno-state, burying a Pakistani woman doesn't seem like the way to do that. And despite the history that I have with Ralph, I still feel that I should be charitable with him and point out that this conversation from a DM I had with him in September, way before this article was released.
Because Ralph's also calling the big cuck because he's just because he fillets Sargon
It would be entertaining
of a god.
call it versus a person like Atheism is Unstoppable. Basically, he thought it would be entertaining for the audience to have a Holocaust denier debate a person who hates Holocaust deniers. And that's what Ralph does. He is an entertainer, and in this case, he thought it would be entertaining.
He's an entertainer, you guys.
People go at it. And it shows how lazy the Wall Street Journal really
Everything
is. They
goes
would have
when
gone
you're an
for Ralph
entertainer.
for numerous reasons and numerous
Everybody knows
offenses that would have also made the list and would have been accurate. Instead, they choose to blame a terrorist attack on Ralph and also call him far right. This is lazy tabloid publication horseshit rather than actual journalistic investigation.
Just because there's a ton of anti-Semitic comments in his comments and super chats doesn't mean he's alt-right.
One user paid £2 to write how you get a Jewish girl's number roll up her sleeve, and another $5 to say if you want to know if the synagogue shooting was a false flag, then check out the Lucky Larry life insurance policy on those dead Jews. Now, there are many super chats that I have seen on YouTube, including on Ethan Ralph's channel, and some of them are indeed anti-Semitic. But these two ones that the Wall Street Journal decided to pick up are jokes. And again, I need to remind you that
Just
one
a
of their
joke.
own writers at the Wall Street Journal
It's
is
just a
fine
joke.
with jokes. He likes South Park, a show
Oh.
where there are a lot of jokes, especially
Oh,
against the Jewish
jokes.
people. And it's very hypocritical of them.
Yeah,
and
very
I don't
hypocritical.
believe that the purpose for this article is out of
Justice.
concern
We need
over the
justice
super chat
in our
feature.
society.
Again, the purpose
You might
of this
say
article,
social
in my opinion,
justice.
is to attack the income of creators on YouTube and make people feel more afraid when putting out content for YouTube. The message is clear: sanitize your content, or else the Wall Street Journal might make an article and you can lose your channel. Not to mention, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, you
The
got the
onus seems
platforms.
to be put on the content creator, the person actually making the video. The person making the video can't have any control of what super chats the people in the crowd are sending him. Based on the Wall Street Journal mentality, all I would have to do would be to get 20 people or so, go on the Young Turks, start sending 14.88 pesos to the Young Turks in super chats, and add some offensive Jewish jokes there, and then the Wall Street Journal might write an article. This is a very ridiculous standard, and I think the Wall Street Journal knows that this is a ridiculous standard, which is why they actually did it. For content creators to be afraid when they're making content on YouTube. Then they talk about that YouTube has permanently removed Mr. Ralph's channel from its platform for policy violations and for going against its terms of
It's
service.
not working. I can't
This is
show
also
this
interesting.
video.
Usually you
why.
get a community strike when you do something bad. The scary thing about Ralph is that he got removed entirely from YouTube. And when he went to have another conversation on Zidane's channel also got removed. And then a lot of channels that were archiving the kill stream got removed as well. Now, I know that a lot of people don't like Ethan Ralph, and I'm not
I don't know who
exactly
he
buddy
is.
buddies with him either. But people need to disassociate Ralph from the story. It's not
Right.
about Ethan Ralph. It
It's
is
not
about
about
what
the
just happened
fascists
and the
that
fact that it can happen again to other
it's not
creators.
about
And that
which
this article is an
fascist
attack
is
on the
being
YouTube community
deplatformed.
as a whole.
It's just about
Ethan
the
Ralph
fact
has since
that
moved to a
fascists are
different
being
platform,
deplatformed.
and all of his subscribers and fans have moved with him. And there are other live streamers who aren't as edgy as Ralph, who don't feel safe on the platform anymore and are considering or have already
Oh, they
moved to
don't feel
other platforms
safe.
as well, taking their
Would you like
subscribers
a
and their
safe
fan base to a
space?
competitor. And
Yeah,
YouTube,
go
in
to
my
a
opinion, made a
competitor.
bad decision.
Just
YouTube
go
should
to a
have given
competitor.
Ralph a
The market
warning or at
always
least communicate with
succeeds.
him.
There's
For
always
those
a
of you who don't
competitor
know,
to go to.
again, even if you like Ethan Ralph or not, the reality is his stream was several times top trending on YouTube. He
Right.
was
It
very
was
good
top
at what he
trending
was
on
doing,
YouTube. How
entertaining people. And because of that, he
it
got into
couldn't
the
be
crosshairs
bad.
of the mainstream media,
It was
which
trending.
sends a
You
message to other
guys, it was
YouTubers
trending.
that if you grow too much and you become quite large, then you start having additional risks to your channel.
You think?
Mr. Ralph's channel had 22,500 subscribers. I think the subscribers are irrelevant. When you're in the live streaming community, it's
They're
not the subscribers that
irreverent.
matter. It's the
It's
actual people watching
irreverent.
your stream, and
It's
he got quite
irreverent
a
how
high
many
number for a YouTube
subscribers
streamer.
you have.
Again, accusing him of being far right, who have used the super chat function to
Accusing
take
him
money.
of
Well,
being
I
a
think
far
this is
right
the
just
purpose
because of
of the super chat function.
anti-Semitism.
The
Think
top
about
rate
it.
amongst
Couldn't you
accusers can be
be
wide-ranging, from the
anybody
first
and
night
be
of tragedy in
anti-Semitic?
Pittsburgh and
Doesn't
the
mean you're
confirmation of
far
the Supreme
right.
Court of Brett Kavanaugh
Think
to
about it.
internal debates among members of the far-right online communities. And again, this is
Oh,
factually inaccurate.
oh,
First of all, I
factual
would like to point out
inaccuracy.
that this is
Ooh,
what the mainstream media does. They also take tragedies, write articles about it,
right.
and then put ads on them. Some
Oh,
journalists even editorialize the tragedies and put a political spin on
no.
it, and they also have ads on
No.
them. So it seems that the
No,
journalists,
surely
they want
not.
to monetize
That
human
happens?
misery. They want to monetize these
Oh,
tragedies, but they don't want their
oh.
competitors to do the same. For some reason, it's
Oh,
abhorrent
I
when a
see.
YouTuber does
They
it. In
want to
fact, I'm willing
monetize,
to
but
bet
not,
that
they
this
don't want their
video
competitors
itself
to.
is going to be put in a limited or a no ad status.
Ooh,
Because
that's
this is what happens
right.
on YouTube when you talk
I
about the
could see
tragedy.
that
However, you
happening.
have
I'll have to,
comedians on Comedy
I'll have to
Central, you
check
have
up on that.
journalists and the mainstream media who are constantly talking about tragedies. Breaking news, breaking
Constantly.
news. Let's see this woman being
Man,
ran
the
over in
news
slow
is
motion.
always talking
Coming
about
up right after
tragedies
the
as if
commercial
they're
break.
news.
Now, apparently, the lie that they put here is that Ralph only has members of the far right online community. That is not true.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
he actually had atheism
I've been
is
watching
unstoppable. I don't
Ralph.
think
I'm
anyone
not
would call him
part of the
far right.
far right community.
Anyone that
I
wanted
celebrate
to go on
his
the kill stream, as far as
deplatforming,
I
but
know,
that, I
was
mean,
allowed
I'm
to
not
go.
part of the
You know, unless
far
he
right
even takes
community.
call-ins. Like literally anyone can join that place. So again, like really poor, shoddy job by the Wall Street Journal.
Oh,
I would expect
bad
this
job,
from
Wall
some
Street Journal.
random publication
You should
from
do
a
your
tabloid,
job
but
better.
really, the Wall Street Journal, do you have no standards anymore? I
Maybe
guess
they
like
don't.
most people who are reading this,
Maybe they don't
know
have
about the
standards.
situation, so they're not going to investigate. But
See,
as someone who's on YouTube and I know who Ethan Ralph is,
Sargon and V got
again, like there are
standards.
so many things you can
Medicare
criticize him on,
got
and there are so many
standards,
things that he does that
but
are
not
unethical.
the
But
Wall
what the Wall
Street
Street Journal accuses
Journal.
him of is
Hey,
not the case.
you
You can
guys,
maybe
the
make
Wall
an
Street
article
Journal,
saying
it's
that
a
he
famous
platforms
for
hate.
being
I mean,
liberal.
this is a
Don't
thing that
don't
goes
hurt
on
the
in
Wall
the
Street
media right now,
Journal.
platforming hate. I guess, yeah, I disagree with the principle, and you can say, yeah, that's
What's a
true,
principle?
but him himself is
Fuck.
not far
What's a
right.
principle? What's a principle?
He's
You guys, what's the
monetizing hate,
principle?
another interesting one, yeah. He's fucking crazy. Like these human emotions, they need to be stopped, shouldn't they? We need to stop monetizing envy now.
V,
This
thank
is what
you
the next
for
goal should be. And then we need to
defending
go after
human
jealousy.
emotions.
And any other
You know what? They're
human
human.
emotion that's
They're
in the
human.
negative spectrum. Hate speech and content that promotes violence is prohibited on YouTube. We have also been working over the last several months to refine our...
All right. Well, enough of that. But it's made me think, since Sargon versus Andy versus Medicare versus Sam Cedar is really based, it's number 5 on my list. And it's sort of, that's what this audio I was just playing was related to. Makes me think I should go through this stuff backwards. All right, so yeah, I've been watching a lot of the cracks in the alt-right. We're not alt-right, we're all different sorts of words. Sargon versus Worski versus Medicare versus Sam Cedar, who none of them will debate. Peter Molyneux debates Sam Cedar. Who's that other idiot? Mr. Crowder. And whoever you are. So going backwards, number 4, which was going to be the fourth thing I got to when I, planned, because of course this is all planned. Current politics. Ah, so after the Hawaii volcanic eruption, I've become addicted to Facebook, and I'm actually spending time on it. I signed up because I have family. They're all over the world, New Zealand, California, blah, 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 all over. And, I'm like, you can't really just not connect with them if Facebook is the way. But when the Hawaii eruption came, I started going on Facebook a lot because that's where the, like, up to the date, up to date information was. And so this is annoying. Oh, what an annoying platform. But then you get addicted. So anyway, item number 4 here is the current state of politics. And, I feel it's really difficult. Like, I don't want to split the United States up, but I've been suggesting maybe that's what we need to do. It sounds like a divorce because the conservatives just won't engage. They won't have the basic respect for your view to just like, hey, could you guys memorize this is my view so that when you're thinking of big ideas, you can realize here's where I'm coming from, and I may not like that or may like it. You know what I mean? I don't mind that a conservative would try to come up with a conservative plan. But just to say, when they say the people want this, that they're just talking about conservatives, like, no, it's a democracy. It's a democratic republic. And, you have to at least memorize the fact that there's these people that think this particular way, and you're going to have to take that into account. And if you're going to try to say that, like, well, no, we need 50 plus 1 votes, and those 50 plus 1 don't even have to be convinced, they just have to, be convinced to vote. Yeah, there's going to be a problem with that. And to me, that's a problem. It's like, when you respect other people's opinion in a democratic system, it's not like you're saying, oh, I get why they want to believe that way. It at least means I respect people are going to have other opinions. I will try to remember what their reasons are for the other opinions. I will try to figure out a way to address their concerns and that sort of thing. And yet we seem to have a total breakdown of democracy where people aren't doing that, especially on the right. On the left, I think people are learning that, well, how can you try to calculate the other person's perspective when they're basically saying you're not American and you're pro-crime and you're pro-destruction, you hate the nation, you're trying to destroy it. It's not that you have an idea of what would be good and it differs from mine. It's literally a matter of you are destructive. You're pro-crime. I have a comment in my chat from Stable Genius Progressive. He says, hello, what's new, Pyrrho? Well, I'm at an age where nothing seems new. And then he says, "Hey, Pyrrho, do you still talk to Gary and Manham much lately?" "No, I haven't talked to him for months and months. I can't be bothered." So current politics is pretty much broke down, and I feel like it's broke down enough that, hey, we should talk about divorcing. No, that's a terrible thing too, people say. Don't talk about that. I really would like conservatives to reach out and say, here's things we could do together. You're liberal, I'm conservative. We both think you should fund some sort of a military. The problem is, I don't think $700 billion dollars is the right amount. I think we could do with 3 or 400 billion. Do the math. You should look at see how much other people spend on military. See if that would cover it. All right. So so item 3 here is the philosophy of liberty. Okay, so it's a weird thing. First of all, it really bugs me that leftists have ceded the concept of liberty to the "I don't want to pay taxes" crowd, right? Liberty is a specific thing. On Liberty by John Stuart Mill defines liberty as a a somewhat specific thing. Shows that society limits liberty. It's not just the legal system or government. And it's a very, very important concept. And you can measure liberty. It's a measurable quantity. There's a lot of subtleties that would be difficult to measure, but in the basic, you have, how free are you to go somewhere else? How far can you go? That's your liberty of movement, right? What level of, what art can you get away with? And that seems like the kind of thing that'd be hard to measure, but basically you can measure it. Why? Because people try all these different kinds of art, and you can see what is, what you can get away with. Stable Genius also asks, how do you feel about all this domestic terrorism and the way the media on the right covers it? Also, who among the people we know of do you think are the best to run against Trump in 2020? Terrorism is bad, okay. Okay, well, okay. So, yeah, this item was, the previous item was current politics. So, okay, I'll answer that. That's difficult, right? I had this from foundation to the higher level things, which is why current politics is way up there at 4. So given that you're building up on some artifices, who is among the people? I do think Bernie Sanders could win, but he's getting quite old. I think that the Democrats should run people, especially progressive, and in the places where they have no chance by conventional wisdom, like in the South, they should just run liberal populists. See how they do. I mean, if you're going to lose anyway, go ahead and try them out. And, history actually shows that in these conservative South or wherever, populism can always work. So, who could run in 2020? Okay, realistically, there's people I don't particularly like Kamala Harris. I think, she let off the bankers. She had in her personal discretion of her office to hold people account to law and order, and she should have done that. I personally semi-condemn her for not having done that. However, it's all relative, like her versus Trump. Well, her. So, taking into account how American people vote, I could see a ticket being very viable that's, way more conservative than what I actually would want for the country. But like Kamala Harris and Beto O'Rourke, who, he's too conservative for me. It's like, yeah, I wish he would have beat Ted Cruz, but, he's not my ideal politician. But could he appeal to other people? Yeah. And so in that vein, you have Kamala O'Rourke 2020. What I actually like, well, to me, even someone like Elizabeth Warren, she's actually coming from a sort of a moderate Republican perspective. She just happens to think there should be law and order on the banking sector. So I like her for that, but it's not like she's, particularly progressive. It's not like, electing a, I don't know, some president that believes in the MMT, the modern monetary theory or something. Um, who I would rather prefer would be basically, a Bernie slash Ocasio Cortez. That's what I would want. But would that more likely win? No, probably Camilla and Beto people. And that would be acceptable to me because, look, we're dealing with, Donald Trump types. So, democracy. Now, one thing that really bugs me about conservatives now is many times I have said something along these lines like, hey, since we're a democratic system, our job is to figure out what we can agree on and work on together. That's our job. Be real creative. You're a conservative and there's a liberal, or you're a liberal and there's a conservative, or you're apathetic and there's people that care. Whatever, you're supposed to go, hey, what can we work on? That's for democracy to work, that has to happen. That's why it's a problem that less than half of the people vote. It's a requirement for democracy to work. People have to care about what we do together, and it has to be that we don't agree on everything. Let's figure out what we agree on. Yeah, we think the kids should have a park or a school. That's really, the basic question. I think we have certain people that are like, in a way, democracy is an agreement to have a disassociation. Like, hey, I agree to live and let live and be different from everybody else. But here's what we're going to do together. And that's sort of what the breakdown in our culture is right now, is that, no, I don't agree. But you can't just pretend that you own, the United States territory was obtained by the United States military. And it's like a required homeowners association in a development of a gated community. The United States government went out and made this gated community known as the United States. They obtained land various ways, some of it just taken from what the British claimed they owned, some of it taken from purchases from France, some of it taken just by military action, whatever. They did all that, good or bad or indifferent or however you see that. That's how we have a claim if we pay taxes to be a part of that. And it's true we are a republic, not just a democracy. We have a rule of law. I mean, the republic part is where the rights of the um, minority come in. Okay. All right. So item number one is, I'm writing a book. I've been writing a book for a while, and when I look at my old videos, I see that there's whole previous generations of, hey, I'm making a video. I want to write a book like about blah blah blah, and it's exactly what I'm working on now. So it's pretty much 10, 20, 30 years depending on how you calculate it. Right now, I'm writing a book that I mentioned before called Illusions Exist, which is what I called my regular hangout for a while. So the basic idea is I'm defining 8 terms. In those 8 terms, you sort of get the gist of a philosophy, but it's also a philosophy that's just a graph paper, right? Your opinions. So, like, I define materialism. You could you could say, hey, I endorse that this definition of materialism is what we should consider materialism, or I don't endorse it. You could have your own opinion on these 8 items, and you'd have your own philosophy. So my presentation of the philosophy is not it's not like a propaganda where to think about my ideas means you're going to agree. It's more like a graph paper where what your position is on those 8 definitions helps you define your own position. I mean, if you're anti-skepticism, then looking over here. That says a lot about you, right? So, because here's the 8 terms: philosophy, skepticism, materialism, relativism, right? Spirituality, ethics and morality, and art. Ethics and morality, I'm actually in my book, I'm putting them in like the same chapter. Ethics and morality. Because I consider morality, moral systems are systems that help define what the how you should treat people that are in groups you are also in. And ethics is how you should treat people that are in groups that are related to groups you're in, right? So ethics is like, I am a nurse. How should I treat the doctor? How should I treat the patient? I am a lawyer. How should I treat the opposing counsel? How should I treat my client? Whereas morality is more like, I am in a group. How should I treat people in the group? I'm a member of the village. How should I treat people in the village? I'm a member of my family. How should I treat people of my family? I'm a member of a nation. How should I treat people in my nation? I'm a member of the human race. How should I treat members of the human race? I am a mammal. How should I treat mammals? I am, right? And so basically, I'm trying to come up. I've been writing this book, and I end up rewriting a lot because I'm thinking about, well, what is the high level, the 1 sentence, 2 sentence, the short, most, how terse can I put the definition of these 8 words? And so far, it's basically like this. Philosophy is conscious contemplation. Skepticism, being a study and reflection, and how to perform that contemplation, is the idea that in our contemplations, what we have is appearances, a series of appearances. That's what we analyze, that's what we contemplate. So everything that we come up with is from processing that series of appearances. Plus, you can't take appearances at face value. When you look into them closer, the appearances change. Materialism is the idea that things matter, that one thing relates to another, implies another, and that they matter, that there is a material implication, that there's a consequence, that some of the results of the outcomes of things, of logic or physical consequence, have a negative versus a positive interaction with you. A relativism is the idea of, okay, so all we have is this series of experiences. They matter. How do they matter? Well, it's through their relationships. And, if you're like, hey, I endorse relativism as the only interpretation of things, you're saying the facts of the matter are in the relationships, right? It's not that the car is red in itself. It's that its relationship to you is such that, and to the sun is that it reflects red light and it hits your eye, and so it's red. Doesn't mean it has an inherent red property. It's a relationship. But even if you're not relativist in that sense, it's obvious that relativism is an important part of cognition. We calculate these relationships. This thing is, brighter red. This thing is dimmer red. This thing has more of this quantity and less of that quantity. And it's through these comparisons that we obtain all facts that we reason from. You might think that, hey, I'm a dogmatic objectivist. There's more facts. There's an absolute fact. But you can't know it. You have to achieve it through your senses, therefore relative to the object you're perceiving, relative through your perceptions. Spirituality. It's important to have spirituality. That's just your philosophy on living things and being a living thing. That's what spiritual. Now, some people don't see their spirituality that way, like, religious people. They see their spirituality a different way. But I still say that their spirituality, their Christianity, is their philosophy on living things and being a living thing. It turns out that spirit means breath, it means a living thing. It's the quality of being alive. And even though that quality turns out not to be a property, just like red isn't a property, but it's a relationship between that system and the rest of the universe, it is still the being categorizable as a living system. So it's still this particular kind of relationship. And that's what people are actually philosophizing about when they analyze their spiritual feelings and any received spirituality. Remember, philosophy is the conscious contemplation of things. So to have a philosophy of life, that's spirituality. That's a spiritual philosophy. But it's possible to just seems possible to have a subconscious perspective that you just happen to have or that you received and that you haven't consciously, mulled over. And that's more what we would call a religion. Could be right, could be wrong, who knows? If you don't consciously contemplate, it's sort of hard to make an argument one way or another. All right, then there's morality and ethics, which I mentioned as, systems that help describe to a person how it's correct to treat other people that are members of your group, morality, or people that are members of groups that have relationships to you, ethics, right? So how to treat members of your species, other humans, it's morality, or how to treat people that, I don't know, you're a carpenter, they're your client. What is the ethics of how you should treat the person you're doing carpentry for? And then the final thing is art, philosophy of art. Now, what is art in my one sentence, philosophy treatment. It is the creation, the intentional, right? The intentional, not necessarily conscious. I'm not saying art is philosophy. It doesn't necessarily have to be conscious. It's more free than philosophy. But it's intentional. Art has to be intentional. In other words, there may, and I think, be such a thing as unconscious intentional or subconscious intentional. There's intentional. It's the intentional creation of the illusions, right? And it all makes sense because basically we're just having a series of appearances. All of the appearances include illusion. There might be things that are other than illusion if you could define such a thing. And art is the intentional creation of an illusion. So philosophy, conscious contemplation, skepticism, contemplation of appearances and they're not what they seem, materialism, things matter, relativism, the appearances are related to each other. Materialism, things are also appearances. Spirituality and material spirituality, life matters. The quality of being a living thing versus something that isn't living that matters. And spirituality is your philosophy of it. Ethics and morals, how you treat other people that are either in a relationship to you, your child, their parent, their child, your doctor, their patient, your nurse, their doctor, whatever. And art. That's it. You can define a whole world philosophy through having a position on those things. Art's the intentional creation of illusion. Your attitude of art it's whatever your attitude is towards intentionally creating illusion. I'm a stoic. It's pointless. I'm an Epicurean. It's a great, mild entertainment. Your position on all of those things, for, against, or which kind of for and which kind of against you are, that will define your philosophy and allow you to have a framework. But you're still going to want to buy the book. I think you're still going to want to buy the book. Right, let's see if there's anything, any chats over here. Okay, stable genius still. Okay, stable genius progressive. I'll see what you have to say. My roommate is a flat earther who thinks everything is a conspiracy. Sounds like the Trump constituency. He thinks the people on the news talking about their dead loved ones and such seems scripted. Sounds like a Trump voter. I don't know what to do with that level of stupid. Yeah, me neither, except for that I've decided, yeah, we have to challenge it. We can't just entertain it. I've always liked conspiracy theories. I'm familiar with a long history, being 50 now, of, at least 40 years of directly paying attention to this kind of thing. I always thought it was interesting. I never thought it would affect our political vote. I was naive about that. I should have known better looking at the things I know about of history. This lack of critical thinking should be challenged. There's always this question of should you, hey, you're stupid, or should you, look, man, you're not thinking through. But definitely it's a danger. And this idea that people can just think whatever they want, it's kind of like, look, there used to be an authority if society tells you what it's okay to think. It's still there to the large degree, but a lot of people are like, man, fuck that shit. And now they think, oh, you just drink, like I have people telling me, I've noticed, you can't just believe what you hear. And yet they do. They're like believing in Alex Jones shit and telling me, because they're saying you can't just believe what you read. And they're going to themselves, so I can just believe whatever I want. No. you can't believe whatever you want. That's not what that means. It means you got to be more careful in what you do believe, and they're not doing that part. So it's scary. And these entertaining, conspiracies become dangerous. Things like the flat earth conspiracy, I find it kind of interesting. Like somebody should write a science fiction story in that universe. That's cool, interesting. Look at that disk world with the ringed by icy mountains. I could get into that, as a piece of fiction. Why not? I could pretend that and suspension of disbelief and see it, hey, that would be fascinating. So it seems harmless and even interesting, but the fact is, the real problem is, yeah, but those people also think all the USGS and NASA scientists are fake or conspiracy. I mean, they're evil people. They're not just going around their business as a scientist, really good scientists or just average or whatever, doing their job. No, they're fucking part of a conspiracy that's lying to everybody. And that's, yeah, it's really dangerous. It's like anti-Semitism. I hate a random Jew because he's part of this conspiracy. It's the same kind of thing. I hate a random USGS scientist. Why? Because he has to be part of the lie, or else it doesn't make sense that he's even there at all. So, yeah, I've come to think all these conspiracy theories are way more dangerous. I've always wished conspiracy theorists would just at least study first, or in addition to what these conspiracies they believe, the actual known conspiracies, the experiments on military guys. um, what are those ones called again? The Muskegee experiments, various, they should just know Iran Contra. Learn all the details about Iran Contra before you tell me the moon landing was totally faked. Yeah, I agree. It's a preconceived world thing, but it's not even about the preconceived worldview, Stable Genius. It's more about a suspension of belief where I am protected from the outside world. It's not about does it seem real to me, it's about does it make me feel isolated from the external world. So they'll say they're just asking questions, but it's obviously not that way. I mean, the flat earth is a great example. It used to seem to me like it was just like the people that were doing it were kind of on a lark. Maybe there was a few true believers. But this new generation, you could see why, and people want to think, hey, we are the center of the universe. We are special and stuff. So they go ahead and believe this. And it's not even, yeah, there's a preconceived notion, but it's not even about that. It's more about the freedom of a weird kind of nihilistic exploitation of skeptical ideas. It's like, hey, anything could be questioned, so we can believe what we want. No, it's the real skeptical position is anything could be questioned, so let's question it. It's not that you can just believe whatever you want. Hey, you can't always believe what you read. Therefore, just believe whatever you want. That's a weird. It's not. It's like a bastard child between skepticism and dogmatism. It's not skepticism in which you have to measure things and see, hey, who knows what's true? I don't know. Let's go see. Is it true that the sun comes up in the morning? Let's go make some measurements. It's a weird hey, let's use skepticism to say no measurements are 100% sure. And then let's use dogmatism to say what we believe since nothing can be proved. And that's certainly not the way skepticism is supposed to be. And yeah, the conspiracies do happen. There's a ton. Iran Contra, what we did in South America and overthrowing Chile. Sure, think about it. If you had $1 billion and you had a plan and you didn't go out trying to publicize it, even if you didn't try to hide it particularly, kind of count as a conspiracy, right? Yeah, so people do that. Um, it's just that you can't find the real conspiracies by making stuff up. MK Ultra, that was a real project that the CIA did, and they invented a torture manual, instruction manual that they've used ever since, and that's a real thing, and it's a pretty dark conspiracy. But just making up your own thing about reptilians, or we didn't go to the moon, or HARP controls the weather, that's another thing. So, anyway, thanks for the feedback, Stable Genius Progressive. Appreciate it. Don't schedule these things when you show up and give feedback. I really appreciate it. So I've been leaning over there reading, because I'm reading the comments on the other thing, as if you need an explanation. All right. Cheers.